A bill has been introduced recently to require all public utility vehicles to be installed with closed-circuit television cameras and global positioning systems trackers. The measure has been approved in the House of Representatives in its second reading. To give us more insights into this legislation, we have invited to Motoring Forum one of its principal authors, Representative Emmeline Aglipay-Villar. Welcome to Motoring Today, Congresswoman Villar.
Hello, Butch, and hello to all the viewers of Motoring Today.
It has been reported that House Bill 6112, otherwise known as the Public Utility Vehicle Monitoring Act, has been approved by the House of Representatives on its second reading. Would you kindly appraise our viewers regarding the rationale behind the legislative measure?
Well, this bill was written in order to protect the commuting public. The installation of CCTVs and GPS tracking devices will ensure that, it will help. Of course, it can't totally prevent, but it would help in preventing the event of robbery or theft or other criminal activity inside public utility vehicles. It would also help in the prevention or in efficient crime prevention, such as in identifying the culprit. We know that lately there have been a lot of schemes such as the Laglag Barya, wherein people would drop coins and then the commuters would try to pick it up and then to create a diversion, so that while they're picking up the coins, there'll be pickpocketing that will happen, and they will be held up, or there will be theft. And the same thing with the ketchup gang, where they'd smear ketchup on your clothes or on your skin while you're sitting down on a bus, and as you open your bag to get something to wipe it, then they'll come in and get your wallet or other things inside your bag. So having CCTV cameras inside public utility vehicles would, I guess, this is proven to deter the commission of these kinds of crimes inside public utility vehicles. With respect to GPS tracking devices, this would aid our police to prevent crime and to monitor the location of all public utility vehicles, so that if in case there's an accident, such as when the public utility vehicle is stalled, it can be monitored that there's an accident in this area because this public utility vehicle is not moving for a long time, even despite the other cars in the same location are already moving. So this can also I guess this can also help them help the operators to monitor the activity of their drivers. But in effect, the rationale behind this bill is really to protect the commuting public.
Ma'am, can you briefly enumerate for our viewers some of the major provisions of the bill?
The bill essentially provides that all public utility vehicles, and it was enumerated there, buses, school services, tourist buses, should install CCTV cameras, and when they renew their license, they should install it. And upon the effectivity of the act, they are given 6 months to install these CCTV cameras and global positioning devices, so the GPS tracking devices. So aside from this provision that mandates this, there are also provisions that provide penalties for violations of, for instance, non-compliance with the installation of the CCTVs and GPS, or the tampering with the CCTVs or the GPS, or for an operator allowing the buses to ply the streets or to accept passengers without installation of CCTVs or GPS tracking devices. So these are some of the violations of the Act which merits a penalty, and the penalties are enumerated in the Act. It can be a fine from 5,000 for the first offense, 10,000 second offense, and then 15,000 third offense, until it progresses until it reaches the cancellation of the license or the cancellation of the franchise of the operator. So other penalties include failure to bring the public utility vehicle to the police precinct when ordered to do so. Because this happens when a public utility vehicle is given an order to bring the PUV to the LTFRB or to a designated place where, or to the LTO, so that the CCTV, the contents of the CCTV, the recording, would be retrieved and stored for purposes of investigation or for evidentiary purposes. And if the operator or the driver does not comply, this is a violation of the act. Aside from the penalties that I've mentioned, there's also a penalty of imprisonment from 1 to 2 years in case the video recordings are confidential in nature. So if these are also sold or distributed and this is unauthorized, then this is also punishable by imprisonment of 1 to 2 years, 1 to 3 years, or a fine of 100,000 to 2 million. So, of course, there are also authorized. There are also instances where the distribution of the CCTV footage is authorized, like for court proceedings. So, or for instance, if to identify, for instance, a criminal or an accused is clearly visible in a CCTV footage, and there's an outstanding warrant for an arrest of the accused person, then this is another authorized instance where the footage can be made available to the public.
The legislation, when passed into law, would inevitably mean additional costs for the PUV operator. If you couple this additional cost with the continuing rise in fuel prices, wouldn't it be logical to project protests from these operators, or perhaps at the very least demands for increase in fares to cover the additional cost? Are there provisions in the bill that would address this possibility?
Well, first of all, we should remember that the safety of the commuting public is paramount. It is our priority to keep commuters safe, to keep motorists safe, and this is like what I stated earlier, is the reason why we wrote this bill and we're pushing for its passage into law. So the additional cost that the operators would have to shell out for the installation of the CCTVs, when weighed against safety that will be the safety of our commuting public and the efficient monitoring of or efficient prevention of crime, then I guess the safety of our commuting public would be weightier. The operators should simply, I guess they should see this as their way of helping to protect their commuters, and they would also benefit from the installation of CCTV cameras, since they would be able to monitor the activity of their employees. For instance, the installation of GPS devices would make them monitor the speed that their buses are that their drivers are on, the speed that the drivers are usually on, so they can advise their drivers, we've noticed that you're going too fast. So these would also help them to minimize costs in the future, because usually buses that are going too fast get into accidents, and when they get into accidents, people are injured, and in effect they would have to pay for the hospitalization and of the people who were injured. They would have to pay for their buses that are damaged because of the accidents. They would have to pay for for the other cars that were damaged because of the accidents. So this would also help them in the long run to think that they would just have to spend once for the purchase of the CCTV and the GPS devices.
Tell us, ma'am, would the bill also include provisions as to what brands of the devices to be required? Would it also have provisions regarding the sourcing of these devices, or will the operators be left to decide on this?
Under the bill, there is a provision there for having specifications and standards, like a committee composed of the LTFRB in coordination with the DOTR, DICT, and the DTI. So they would come up with specifications and standards for the GPS and the CCTV.
Now, how are the other legislators reacting to this bill? Would it face rough or easy sailing in its approval?
I don't see any major opposition from my colleagues in the House, so I think that there will be no problem in approving this on third reading.
Thank you very much for your time, Madam Congresswoman. Before we let you go, do you have any message to the operators and drivers who would be affected once this bill is passed into law?
I guess my message to the operators is that when you undertook this business of providing transportation to the public, it's also a commitment to serve the public with the highest diligence, and most especially for the protection of the people who hire you, or who the commuting public who ride your vehicles. Their safety, the protection of their life and limb is utmost importance, not just to the government, but also it should be to you as operators. Profit is, of course, it's understandable that you want to make profit, and any cost would, of course, sometimes be a big concern for you as operators, because this would affect your income. But we should also still remember and prioritize your duty as operators, to make sure that the commuters and the people you serve are always safe and protected, safe from accidents, safe from crime. And installing these CCTV cameras and these GPS tracking devices would be able to prevent the occurrence of crime, and would be able to aid in ensuring their safety. And so I see it as a duty to be able to promote safety, so that you'll be able to comply with your responsibility to provide the highest diligence of service to them. And besides, like I mentioned earlier, this would also help you to monitor your employees and to prevent future costs. So it would go both ways. I hope that you would see this and support our bill as well.
Thank you once again, ma'am.
Thank you, Butch, and happy motoring.
Congresswoman Emmeline Aglipay-Villar, our guest this week on Motoring Today's Motoring Forum, with insights into the proposed legislation to require the installation of CCTV cameras and GPS trackers on all public utility vehicles. Motoring Forum is courtesy of Suzuki Philippines.